Hey everybody, in this first narrated PowerPoint presentation, I will be discussing teacher effectiveness and what it means to become an effective teacher of reading. So first, I'd like you to think about what effectiveness looks like in teaching reading. And so you need to be able to apply theories about how children learn. You need to know how to support students' use of certain systems in our language, how to create a community of learners, how to adopt a balanced approach to instruction, how to scaffold for students, how to organize a literacy program, how to differentiate instruction, how to link instruction to assessment, and how to integrate state standards into your instruction. And so far, we're going to kind of capture what this quarter will look like. You can think of those tenets of effectiveness. So first, let's begin by talking about how children learn. And you've probably heard of behaviorism, constructivism, sociolinguistics, and information processing. So this is really just a quick refresher on these theories of learning. And so behaviorism uh, is this idea that our behaviors are all learned responses to some stimuli. And that is what reading is. Reading is a conditioned response to stimuli. And in this particular theory of learning, the teacher is at the center. The teacher is the dispenser of knowledge. And then in constructivism, this is the belief that children are active agents in their own learning and that they are engaged because they are interested. Sociolinguistics, you can look to our friend Vygotsky, who believed that yes, children need actions on objects in the real world, but they need a more knowledgeable other. And when we think of that more knowledgeable other in terms of reading and language development, we can look to the teacher, but we can also look to every person in that child's environment. So when we think of situated learning theory, we have to remember that learning takes place as life happens, and it's always in context. And then information processing is just this idea that anything we learn has to be interactive to make sense. So we are making sense of our world as we are engaging in it. So effective teachers also support children's use of the cueing system. And in this class, we are going to dig deep into the phonological system, which represents the sounds of our spoken language. English has 44 sounds. The sounds are called phonemes and the letters are called graphemes. And that's important to remember. A lot of people get hung up on the word letters, but letters mean different things to different people. So when we are speaking of the English language, we call sounds phonemes and letters graphemes. The syntactic system, if you want to remember syntax easily, think of Yoda. Syntax is the structural organization of our language. And Yoda often mixes sentence structure up. It still makes sense, but it sounds different when than how we might structure a sentence, if that makes sense. But that's how I remember syntax. I always think of Yoda. The semantic system focuses on the meaning of words. And we have a lot of words in the English language that are spelled the same, like there, and there. One means we are going to a place there. One means their possessional, meaning their cup, their shoes. And then the other is they are, right? They are there at the library. And so semantics really focuses on the meaning of our words. And then pragmatics, that's the system that deals with the social aspects of language use. And so for young children who are entering school for the first time, they are experiencing language in new ways. And we are going to talk about the difference between conversational language and academic language as we go about this course. And so when you think of pragmatics, I want you to remember conversational language and academic language. All right. So when we are thinking about how we develop a community of learners, this should just feel good to you. Like I really truly believe we are all in this field because we care about children. We are excited about teaching and learning. And so when I talk about the characteristics of a classroom community, this should just feel second nature to you. We need to create spaces that are safe for young children while also maintaining high expectations and a sense of collaboration. When children feel safe in their environments, they are more likely to take risks. And I don't mean the type of risks that are going to cause them hurt or harm. I mean academic risks. So when a student feels safe with a teacher, they might be more willing to read out loud, right? Or they might be more willing to try that really hard word that is going to take some practice sounding out. When a child doesn't feel safe, they aren't going to take those risks. In fact, they will stop trying. And so it's important that when you're thinking about your reading and writing instruction, that you also take this idea of creating safe spaces with high expectations very seriously. We also have to make sure that we are engaging families, and we're going to talk more in depth about family involvement as we go, but helping families engage not only in the classroom environment, but in their children's learning and respecting the role of the family and culture, background, belief systems, all of that is a part of how a family engages with the school. We also need to build a community of respect, and that respect needs to be mutual. There should also be choice. We are going to be talking about the reading and writing environment and how you make opportunities for choice throughout the day. And most importantly, school should be fun, right? It should be fun. You, as the teacher, set the classroom climate. And when I say this, I mean you should be the safe person. You should have high expectations. You should nurture collaboration. And I remember telling my mentor teacher when I was doing my student teaching on a break one day, I remember saying to her, "Oh my goodness, you are always on." And what I mean by on is she was always engaging, she was always nurturing, she had this ability to just be um, encouraging and inviting and warm, and it wasn't an act. But then I noticed on our breaks, she needed quiet and she needed to just be down for a few minutes so that she could be her whole self when she was with the kids. And so just think about that. What presence do you bring to the classroom? And then effective teachers adopt a balanced approach to instruction. In this class, we are going to talk about what balanced literacy means. And if you remember from the slide where we talked about sociolinguistics, remember that reading and writing and information processing happens within context, right? And your classroom is just one of many contexts that a child will encounter throughout the day. And so when you're thinking about a balanced approach to literacy instruction, you have to think about that as the balance between explicit instruction, where you are giving direct, guided instruction, where you are very clear on the expectations, you know what your outcome is, and you are teaching to that. And then balance that with authentic application. So maybe you're doing some direct instruction around rhyming, and then you're also working on the daily news where you practice writing ideas that children have about what's happening in the classroom, and you're applying that authentically, meaning the daily news might be, what did you do at recess time? And then if you're working on explicit instruction around rhyming, can you add that component of instruction to your daily news activity? You also have to embed reading and writing strategies, which include oral language and the tools for learning, which we will get into as we go. And then effective teachers scaffold children's reading and writing. And we are going to talk a lot about these different strategies that you see on the slide. And so modeled reading and writing is where you are offering the opportunity to share with children your own practice of reading and writing, and you're doing that for them and with them. And then shared reading and writing, again, if you're working on a daily news activity, you are sharing that process with the kids, and it might even be interactive. But these are kind of the strategies for reading and writing that you will work through over the course of a week, a year, a month with kids. You might be doing guided reading and writing, but the goal is to get children to a place where they are engaging in independent reading and writing. And so now let's talk about how we organize literacy instruction. If you are teaching preschool, kindergarten, first grade, you're going to be doing a lot of guided reading, and you will likely be expected to use a basal reading program. And a basal reading program often comes with scripted lessons, a book that you follow, and selections that accompany workbooks, supplemental books, related instructional materials that are leveled by grade and by reading level. And then literature focus units. I did a lot of literature focus units and literature circles as a teacher because I really valued like high quality children's literature, and found when I engaged in these types of activities, it made reading meaningful for young children. And so an example would be I did author studies. And so the children would get the opportunity to hear stories all week from the same author. Like I loved David Shannon. I did the Brown Bear books, but I would follow an author for a week or more, and we would talk about not only the author's work, but their style of writing. We would talk about the illustrations, and I would tell a little bit about the author's life. At one point, we even had an author come to school. And maybe you've read some of Keith Baker's work, but he came and read to the children, so they got to actually meet a real author. Super fun. And then we are going to be practicing reading and writing workshop. In this class, you're going to get the opportunity to write a reading or writing workshop lesson plan. And this is an opportunity for you to provide guided instruction that is explicit while also offering the opportunities for independent work. As an effective teacher of reading and writing, you also need to know how to differentiate instruction. And what does this mean? So this means, how do you individualize? A lot of people get hung up on the word differentiate. If you can just remember that that means you are individualizing your instruction to meet children's needs. And you have to think about the content, the process, as well as the product. So when you're thinking about the content, you have to know what kids are interested in. For example, my youngest son, he's 11 now, but when he was in second grade, he kept saying, I hate reading, I hate reading. And I would say, you don't hate reading, you just have to find the content that you enjoy. And we learned that he really loves informational text. And then you have to think about the process. How does the process of reading and writing unfold in your setting? And then what does the product look like? The product looks like independent readers and writers. You also need to nurture English language learners through explicit instruction, oral language, small group work, reading aloud, supporting the development of background knowledge, providing authentic literacy activities. You must also work with parents and understand the various interventions, such as reading recovery, response to intervention. And I've added MTSS because we have been talking about MTSS as the field of special education evolves. And that's the multi-tiered systems of support that were modeled after RTI, but take RTI just that step further. And then you have to be able to link instruction and assessment. And we are going to be talking about the variety of instructional assessments used in reading and writing instruction. You also have to understand the assessment cycle. And that looks like planning, monitoring, evaluating, and then reflecting, and then starting again as you plan your lesson. So you're using your assessments to inform your instruction. And then you have to understand your classroom assessment tools. You're going to get to practice running records. And for those of you that are going to be working specifically in pre-K through grade 3, you'll be doing a lot of running records because that is how you are going to determine which reading levels your students are at. You'll be collecting work samples, conferencing, doing checklists, and creating rubrics. And yes, we have to talk about high-stakes testing and its purpose. And remember, the purpose of high-stakes testing is threefold, right? It's to inform you about where your students are at, to inform you on your own practice, and to gauge school-wide um, process. And we're going to talk specifically more about high stakes testing at the end of the quarter. So hang in there. All right, everybody, have a great